Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Today we are in the webinar organized by the National Olympic Committee of Sri Lanka under the title of Sexual Harassment and Abuse in Sport, the hidden scourge. So it's been widely spoken around the world these days, especially the International Olympic Committee. They have put a title under the Safe Sports. They have established a new project also. So, so as to support and so as to initiate the new project by the National Olympic Committee of Sri Lanka, the Women's Committee of National Olympic Committee of Sri Lanka also initiating the new project under the tagline of Safe Sports by this International Olympic Committee. So let me welcome the chairperson of the National Olympic Committee of Sri Lanka of the Women's Committee to deliver her welcome address.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Firstly, I'd like to thank everybody for joining this first-time webinar done by the Women's Committee on Sexual Harassment and Abuse policy to roll out the policy. We were supposed to do it in March before COVID struck us, and so we couldn't do it. So I'm happy that we can do it even via a webinar and get international resource people to join in. So it has worked well for us that we have got Lilamini, our keynote address speaker, who is in Switzerland, who will join us for this webinar. Firstly, I'd like to introduce our panel members, Mr. Suresh Subramaniam, President of National Olympic Committee Sri Lanka, and he has been a former national champion Sri Lanka tennis and Davis Cup player. And our architect of the policy is Mr. Jeevan Gunatilaka, attorney at law, LLB, and he too has played national level rugby for the country. And also we have from the ministry, Mr. KDS Ruwan Chandra, Secretary to the Ministry of Sports, who has very kindly is joining this webinar among his busy calendar with the new Minister of Sports being sworn in today. So thank you, Mr. Ruwan Chandra, for joining. And we have Mrs. Lilamini D'Souza, who is a council member of the International Working Group on Women and Sport, and she's also international sports consultant in Lausanne, Switzerland. So she would be our keynote speaker today. And none other than we have Mr. Maxwell De Silva, who is the Secretary General of NOC Sri Lanka. So all over to you, the panelists, to make this webinar a great success. Gopi?
I think.
Without getting delay, since we have 5 panelists, especially the president from the National Olympic Committee of Sri Lanka, may I ask you the first question. You have now recently introduced for the first time a sexual harassment policy, which is a commendable step. But what step are you taking to create the awareness of this throughout the athletic community and making sure that it's properly implemented?
Gopi, regarding your question, and there was a discussion a couple of days ago about the sexual harassment and whether we should term it safe sport. So I will address that safe sports because we need to work with the rest of the world. Safe sport is an ideal factor, ideal name. Your answer is, you see, the important here is the National Federation, the Olympic Committee, and the Ministry of Sports are the 3 pillars when it comes to sports. So, as I always said, these 3 have to work together for any achievement, irrespective of whether it's a sexual or whether it's a safe sport, medals in sports. So, these 3 have to work together. That is number 1. Number 2, having said that, the laws have been drafted by DLNF Piseram. Thank you very much, Jeevan. And our chairman of the committee, Nilu, have been working very closely. And I find if the Ministry of Sports can bring SIU, that is the Special Investigation Unit, which was created about 8-9 months ago, and that have been set up for sports. If that unit can address any of the problems that have been brought out, would be ideal, because at the moment, if I may say, their role is to look after the corruption in sport. Even this also can become, because the sexual favors also I consider is corruption. So this, you see, the sexual harassment, sexual favors, abuse, all can be brought under special investigation unit. It will be the best way to move forward. And I heard the secretary stating little while ago, and I hope he will remain as secretary and can get this done.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh. Let me ask the question at Mr. Ruwan Chandra, the Secretary of Ministry of Sports. Like as Suresh Subramanian mentioned that these, with the National Olympic Committee of Sri Lanka's policy, we have to work together with the Ministry of Sports because these are the two primary sport authorities in Sri Lanka first. So in that case, how would the Ministry of Sports can help in publishing the policy? Mr. Ruwan?
Yes, thank you very much. In fact, before starting that, let me thank getting me also on board for this the discussion. In the meantime, that I understand that there is a disruption probably due to this network issues. I don't know whether you can hear clearly.
No, it's very perfect.
Is it clear? Okay. Shall maintain a code of ethics subject to the direction of the secretary governing the conduct of persons connected to such sport for the purpose of ensuring the maintenance of discipline and prevention of match fixing, corruption, illegal manipulation and illegal betting in such sports. So it covers basically the issues related to this match fixing, corruption, etc. And further, it covers the discipline, maintenance of discipline, which can be used for our purpose of prevention of sexual harassment. And the section, subsection 2 of section 33, every person connected to a sport shall be bound by the provision of the code of ethics of the respective sport. Subsection 3 of the section 33, any person connected to a sport who acts in contravention of the provisions of the code of ethics of such sport shall also be liable to such sanctions as may be provided for in such code of ethics, which means that we can ensure that there will be certain punishments enforced, the sanctions provisions are there in the act. So we can make use of these provisions. Yeah.
Okay, second question to Mr. Suresh Subramaniam. In your athletic career as a national tennis player, how and you and your colleagues might have come across so many issues that you had any protocol violations to address here. Would you have anything to address here?
See, in the tennis career, I wouldn't say there was a harassment, but I could say there is a problem with parents. You see, I had seen children get smacked or abused by the parents for non-performance. You see, this is one of the biggest problem. You know, there are certain parents, for me pulling them out, being an official, they have even angry with me today. So that is another important thing that we need to look at it. In fact, I had shared some of the information where coaches have been very abusive towards the children for non-performance, rather than, you know, these also one of the things that has to be brought upon. Because I can relate a very important story, which I'm sure some of you all would have heard. Last year, when I say last year, 2018, at the Wimbledon, president was asked to leave the Wimbledon tennis stadium because a young child that was abused by the coach about 15 years ago. And at that time, the president of the Wimbledon was the chairman of that particular club who did not take any action. So when this child became an adult, he brought to the notice that morning on the press. And when press took it over, you won't believe, and that time the same chairman became the president of the Wimbledon Tennis Club. Maybe 20 years later, they upheld and they got him to leave, and he just couldn't enter the Wimbledon Stadium till today. So are we, you know, these are the few things which I had brought to light to my federation, and I'm trying to implement to the National Olympic Committee. irrespective of when what was done, we need to bring it. But of course, in Sri Lanka, still we are far behind. There is the stigma attached. So it is only through education process that we can bring all these out. I'm sure there are some of the athletes who would like to talk, which I wouldn't love to say anything now, though I'd love to bring it to the notice, but it can create a lot of problem later on unless athletes themselves come forward and say.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. As you said, the education is the must, and it's a very, very important step prior to we move to the next steps as well. So in this way, like before we launch this kind of project, the policy is very, very important. So the key person, Jeevan Kunatilaka, he's the one like the very, very important person who developed this policy. So you were involved in the drafting the policy. Could you please elaborate on the salient features, especially how do you draw the line between abuse and harassment?
Thank you, Gobi, for that very generous introduction, which I don't think is entirely due. Yes, in fact, the Olympic Committee retained us, possibly because of our involvement and background in the sport, to come forward with this sexual harassment policy. Now, again, as Suresh also highlighted, again, this is new territory, because I mean, sexual harassment mechanisms in Sri Lanka in itself is quite a new phenomenon that we are still coming to terms with. Sexual harassment now is an offence under the penal code, but again, as Suresh pointed out, due to social considerations, not a lot of people are willing to come forward and accept and admit that they have been subject to sexual harassment. With that in mind, I mean, if you look at sexual harassment, if you look at any organization, even sexual harassment at workplaces now is a key factor and a hot topic. So with the professionalism of sport, again, we must recognize that these athletes are also professionals. So again, you have to recognize it as an institution and you have to give it the same form of effect. Now, bearing that in mind, when we were asked to come forward with this sexual harassment policy, we had to basically do some research on the matter, primarily on account of the lack of available resources internally. So we looked at other territories, we looked at other charters. Fundamentally, we looked at the IOC consensus statement on sexual harassment as a foundation document. Then we also looked at the handbook on sexual harassment given by the Ministry of Women and Children Development in India. Then also the Norwegian Olympic and Paralympic Committee had also issued a statement on sexual harassment and a policy which we also borrowed from. So we took all those factors and basically we brought in our own creation of what we thought was suitable for a Sri Lankan climate. Now the fundamental aspect in our policy is that, can you all hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
The salient feature in our policy is a two-tiered inquiry structure. So basically we have what is called, we have two bodies. The complaints committee and also the hearing committee. Now the complaints committee is your key specialized body, which also has at its disposal various facets and expertise that it can draw upon. For example, it has a legal sphere to it, it has media, it has psychological psychiatrists who can assist on related matters, and that is basically your key body. So what happens is sexual harassment, if there's a complaint, there's a designated email address and also an online link where any athlete can complain, and then the complaints committee will inquire into the matter, make necessary decisions, and they are also empowered to address and make a decision on the matter. Because, as you know, there's a dividing line between sexual harassment and sexual abuse. Now, when it comes to sexual harassment is actually quite a subjective notion. You know, anything can be sexual harassment. No, it can be words. It can just be a touch, as opposed to abuse, where there's actually a more objective assessment. Now, various things like, I mean, to give you examples, because of this subjective notion, for example, what a particular person does not consider objectionable, somebody else may take offense at it. and that can be deemed to be sexual harassment. Now, the most common forms of sexual harassment are basically, the most obvious ones are physical contact, or a request for a sexual favor, or the more colored ones, or the more indirect ones, are basically sexual references, showing of pornography, or anything that is of a sexual connotation or nature that makes a person feel uncomfortable. Now, another hallmark of sexual harassment is basically where the perpetrator is a person who's in a position of authority. So that's why if you take it akin to a workplace, it's generally somebody who's of a supervisory role or somebody in a place of authority. Similarly, a classic case in our instance would be basically a relationship between a coach or administrator or manager and an athlete. Now, that is what basically fundamentally we are looking at preventing and looking at giving some sort of redress mechanism for that. So we've come up with this two-tier structure so that at the initial stage, the fundamental reason why we came up with this two-tier structure is twofold. One is that given the wide spectrum of what can be considered to be sexual harassment, the response or the sanctions and all must be proportionate. Now, it can range between a mere warning, suspension, or can even go even to the fullest extent where we can even look at penal sanctions. Given this broad spectrum, we have empowered this complaints committee to deal with it where it deems appropriate. If they feel at their discretion, now that body is actually is also a fact-finding body. So they will go, they are empowered to make inquiries, they are empowered to interview people, they are empowered to take statements, they are empowered to get professional help if they want to get the involvement of a psychologist, they are empowered to get legal advice. Actually, that is your primary specialized body to deal with the matter. If they feel that further inquiry or hearing is required, they formulate their report and they submit it to what is called the inquiring committee. When the matter goes to the inquiring committee, the complainant and also the accused party can also make further formal representations, and the hearing committee will make a decision. Now, bear in mind, this is the Olympics Committee sexual harassment policy. So basically, what is its ambit and scope? So now most sports, the Olympic Committee, if I'm not mistaken, basically covers national federations that are part of the Olympic Games and part of the Olympic Charter. So once the hearing committee makes a decision, if it goes to that extent, then it gives its recommendation to the National Olympic Committee, the Sri Lanka National Olympic Committee, for their council to endorse or adopt a decision or even to give a lenient sanction. Where required, the National Olympic Committee can also direct that decision and finding to the relevant sports federation to take appropriate action. So that is how we have basically come up with this. We have also borne in mind the sensitivities of the issue, and we also have given pride of place to the rules of natural justice because of the sensitivities involved, where adequate protection is also given to the complainants, potential witnesses, and also to make sure that fairness and transparency of process is followed, where an accused party also has equal right and a fair hearing to rebut any challenges brought against him.
Thank you, Jeevan, for that elaborate procedure on the policy framework, for elaborating the policy framework to everybody. I just have one question on hazing in athletic programs. Hazing is one word that I've seen a lot. Could you be able to, and it's mostly highly litigated, right? Could you explain what in terms of relative to sports, what hazing is?
Yeah, so relative to sports is basically, we have, I know particularly in Sri Lanka, we have this this notion of what we call some sort of initiation process, where basically mainly in sports teams or when you come into a bigger band of an organization or a sports body, hazing is like what we call generally an initiation process which can be detrimental to a person. Most often than not, in our experience, we have seen that this hazing operation also uh, um, involves certain sexual acts or certain sexual insinuations that compromises a person's integrity. So, like I said, Nilu, initially, when you look at sexual harassment, it's a very broad spectrum, and it's very extremely subjective. What you and I would consider what you and I would probably brush off. Somebody else can take grave offense at that. Somebody else can suffer trauma by that. Somebody else can feel, my goodness, we can't do this, and may even be a deterrent for people taking up a certain sport or anything to that effect. A classic example again is if you look at our university setup, where you have lots of people who bend their backs, who burn the midnight oil, and with the greatest of difficulty they get into Sri Lankan university, but they're reluctant to go purely because of ragging. Now, ragging is probably a more cruder term for hazing, but I would say hazing is included in ragging, so distinction is quite blurred. So it's something like that. If we want to get the best out of people, then we have to take out any possible inference that these athletes, especially those who come from rural areas, people who come from areas without a voice, people with lesser means, people who feel that they are from a ethnic background probably that they could get protected. We have to be able to give them that assurance that they are going to be protected and that they are not going to be exploited, and that due process will be there and a fair, equal opportunity will be given to all. So these policies are aimed at actually going to the very root of procedural propriety and fairness for all athletes. Because if, for example, if people are going to be treated differently because of sexual favors or because of certain preferences by coaches and all, we have to look at making sure that the status quo is the same for everybody. So hazing, again, if you don't partake in these things, sometimes you feel, okay, if I don't do this, even if I don't want to, I'm not going to be considered. I won't be considered part of the clique. I won't be considered part of the team. Those are again things that we need to look into. Right now, this hazing thing is also there. In certain schools. A couple of years ago, there was a school that had an incident where this classic example of hazing of a sexual nature came into prominence. Now, these are things that probably we need to totally eradicate purely by education. We need to educate people and say that this is not on. You don't need to do this, right? In fact, there is a grievance handling process. The moment that is educated to everybody and everybody has confidence that there is a system, and also that they have confidence that the system will be effected effectively, then I think we should be on the right track.
Thank you, Jeevan, for that explanation.
Thank you, Jeevan, once again.
Let me bring Mr. Maxwell D. Silva. He has like a long time experience as an administrator in the Sri Lankan sport industry. So with your experience in the sport administration, how do you see athletes or the coaches embracing this policy?
Thank you, Nilu. Thank you, Gopi. Firstly, let me state that we are one country where we don't see on the surface all these issues. Many things are happening. Many people are suffering, not only in when they come as athletes, but also in the schooling system as practicing students, sports practicing students. So as you rightly say, we started saying education. For me, education is the key in trying to eradicate this thing by educating our younger generation, whether it is a male or female. We also need to educate the teachers, coaches, everyone. When it comes to national federations, they play a vital role in trying to get this policy across to everyone. That includes coaches, parents, teachers, and schools, everything. And from our side, NOC, we have under the chairmanship of Nehru, we managed to get this policy. I like to thank Jeevan for his fullest cooperation and support right through. And we have got a document in place. I also talked to the secretary, and he made it very clear at the moment that every national federation should have a what we call a code of conduct, which include discipline. And he has covered in the prevention of the new act which came last year for betting and various other things in 20 Act number 24. And he clearly says in section 33 it covers everything. So I think, Nilu, what we came with a policy statement. We need to get this, firstly get the code of conduct done, and it has to be approved by the Ministry Secretary so that it become a document for all the national federation. I think we are on the right track. But I think if we think it's by having a policy, it's not going to solve the problem. We have seen in US what happened, because particularly I say in Sri Lanka, people doesn't come up and say things. They're scared to say things. And I think Lilamani will agree. They're very scared to come out in public and say things. So we have to handle it very discreetly and handle it carefully. And since people like you are there, I'm very positive that NOC could be the center to take care of some of these issues where we don't take anybody's side. We are impartial people. We want to make it fair for everyone. So for me, it's a big challenge. I feel that we also need to get education ministry involved in education. And fortunately, unfortunately, we have laws in this country. I was looking at the Child Protection Authority. We have a beautiful place. We have a policy document. But I think everybody is criticizing Child Protection Authority not taking much action. So there is one body you could always get their help also. And also there's a Women's Bureau to take care of the women's issues. But hardly, I can't remember any athlete going to any of these places simply because of the fear. So I think we need to build up that confidence with, particularly with our athletes, and also we need to educate our coaches. Suresh talk about the tennis, but I will further go one step further about the contact sports. This is mainly very relevant, particularly with contact sports like gymnastics, like karate, like taekwondo, where the coach has to touch the person. I think we have to send the right message to the coaches and teachers. You know, there are one profession which you have to have in single, you call Ragaya. You can't have Ragaya if you want to be a teacher or a coach. You have to get rid of from that, so that you are a person above all these things. So I think when selecting coaches also, we have to have that quality and see whether this coach would be a good coach. So we need to ensure that when we appoint people in the National Federation, whether they have any bad records looking at these sort of issues. So I think we have to, in future, even when you are selecting someone for official, we will look at whether to get a clearance about activities of the person past. Suresh also talked about in Wimbledon. I think we also need to set an example and say that it doesn't happen with us, and we will strictly go by it, and we'll also ensure that our national federation fall in line with this. And I have the fullest commitment from the Ministry of Sport, particularly Mr. Bhuvan Chandra, and I'm sure even if he has gone, others will also support. With the new minister being a sportsman, and I'm pretty confident that we can make things happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell De Silva. As he said, like, so as to promote this equality and the non-discrimination as the primary value of this Olympism. So IOC has introduced the Safe Sports to protect the athletes and promote these kind of values. So let me ask the question at Mr. Suresh Subramaniam. How important do you think this new policy would be in Sri Lanka, which is taken from this IOC Safe Sport?
Thank you, Gopi. It is very, very important. I think when you say important, more than important, the morality, the coaches and the administrators must have in their mind that they are dealing with children. That is number one. When I say children, even a adult who is over 18, I consider them children because they are trying their level best to do something, and misusing them is a very serious offense. So it is up to us to make sure it doesn't not happen. So we have to be very, very mindful how we handle. I think when I say, and we had one is we had to be open mind. Number two, we should not be take revengeful or vengeful. Somebody, sometimes this happens in this country. I have seen, if you don't like somebody, you can target them. I don't think we should go into that, but I'm sure since we have a very, very professional people working on the NOC side, and I wish and I hope Ministry of Sports also. Up to now, I'm very, very happy Mr. Ruan Chandra had taken a lead and trying to do. But as I told you, it's a very, very, very sensitive thing that we are involved. We have to be very fair whatever we do. And we have to be mindful that we don't hurt anybody unnecessarily. It's very easy for somebody to make a complaint. But you see, it's a stigma. Even the man who makes a complaint, he has a stigma. And man who have been brought to book also has a stigma until it is proved. So we have to be very, very careful. It's not easy. You see, we have taken on something. It is, to me, it's a great thing, but it is a very, very difficult thing. So I'm sure, I don't know, there are experts who can answer me better than this, but I've been involved in sport. I have seen parents, as I told you, abusing children. I had seen favors done for various reasons. So I think we have started with a good note, and we have a new minister in place from today. I'm sure we can take it forward.
Thank you, Suresh. Taking on from what you just said, like whether this would become a witch hunt, start to a witch hunt, Jeevan, what would be the whistleblowing process on the policy that has been developed by your legal firm? And how should this whistleblowing process be adhered to so that the so-called witch hunt will not happen in sports?
Yeah, again, that's a very, very salient point that Suresh pointed out, because we have to actually protect the interest of two parties. That is not only the complainant or the victim, but also the accused party. Because apart from the most obvious damage that can be caused, there's also a certain stigma that attaches to both parties, because there are also athletes like coaches who basically have reputations which will be put on the line in the event they are accused of something of this nature. So again, bearing in mind the complaints process, again there is going to be as per our policy, there is going to be a dedicated web link where complaints can be put, and once there is an online link, once the complaint is processed, it will be handled directly by the complaints committee. Now the complaints committee in this instance, even though it is a creature of the Olympic Committee, is going to be independent. So they will have to the extent where they will even have their own email address, which will be independent of the Olympic Committee, and that will be strictly confidential and private. So any communication on that email address, or even that, or even any complaints lodged on that link, will be held with utmost confidence and secrecy. Complaints can be made. It doesn't have to be the complainant. Doesn't have to be the victim. It can be anybody. It can be a whistleblower. It can be a parent. It can be an administrator. It can be anybody. So another reason why we had this two-tier structure is again to look at basically proportionality and to ensure that absolute fairness is given to both concerned parties. Now, that is why the complaints committee, which is the party to whom any complaint is received, whether it's directly by the complainant or by a whistleblower, they are the specialist body. So they will do all the necessary investigations, and they are empowered on their own to take a proportionate decision on the matter. So if there is a complaint, and if it's unfounded or if there's insufficient evidence, then the name of the accused and all that, they don't have to go through the rigors of a judicial process or a open and transparent process where basically it forms part of a record which is viewed by the public or any public record. It will be dealt at that initial stage. It is only in situations where the complaints committee come to a finding based on investigations, interviews, all the necessary inquiries that they will carry out into the matter, that they feel that there is serious evidence which compels them to to inquire further into the matter and to give stringent sanctions, that they refer the matter to the hearing committee, where there will be a formal hearing. Anything short of that will be dealt with at a lower level by the complaints committee themselves, so that least amount of injury is caused to both parties.
Thank you. Now I would like to bring on Lilamini D'Souza, who would be bringing an international perspective to this, where she would talk. Lilamini, what we would like to know from you is when was such policy developed in the West, and how long was the journey in becoming effective in terms of policy and protecting athletes in terms of safe sport that IOC is advocating? And given your global experience, does sexual harassment and abuse prevalent in both genders? And the issue of male harassment common in the West? So these are some of the questions we would like to ask you. And if you could elaborate and give your international experience to the table here.
Thank you, Needu. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm very happy to be part of this discussion. And congratulations also to the NOC for initiating this. The sexual harassment policy, the sexual violence policy that is being put in place is a big step forward, and it's an important moment. Needu also asked me to speak about the international perspective, but why this topic and policy an all-important priority. I have been listening to everything that you have been saying. And yes, it's a very difficult topic to talk about because it's painful to the victims. It's a topic covered in shame and taboo. It damages everything that modern sport is supposed to be founded on, and that is respect and dignity. And the whole concept of the Olympic movement keeps talking about athletes first. But there are some very serious double standards that have to be addressed, and that is not easy to do without some serious changes in mindset. So we can call it anything we like, abuse, harassment, it's still criminal. Because when you look at the history and you look at what has been happening, I would actually call it a pandemic where nobody is rushing to find a solution. Because it's really that bad. It's also not something you can talk about in isolation because it intersects with other aspects of life that it has been shown, and sporting culture. It's about leadership. It's about corruption. It's about sexism and misogyny. It's about homophobia. It's about religion. It's about patriarchy. It's about the legal system. And it's about the use of language. You know, we have already talked about how difficult it is and how we have to protect everybody, including the perpetrators, and I totally agree. But it's something that we have to take really very, very seriously, starting from really the basic culture of abuse, of being, you know, girls. I'm Sri Lankan. I grew up in Sri Lanka. So being whistled at, being hooted at, being abused sexually. Somebody talked about ragging, and that brought back memories to me because I went for a few days to a university in Sri Lanka and I was ragged. And now I remember that was very bad. Nothing happened in the sense that I was surrounded by boys who just talked absolute filth to me. Talk absolute filth, and some filth I couldn't even understand because it was just so bad. And you can't even go home and tell anyone that you were asked. I was asked, what did they tell you? You can't repeat to your father what these guys told me. So this is something we know it exists, but nobody's doing anything about it because we have very high tolerance and complacency in these issues. First of all, there is nothing new about this topic. Athletes, academics, practitioners, the women and sport movement have all been talking about the scourge of harassment and abuse, sexual or otherwise, in sport for years. But at the same time, it's a new topic, and that is to answer your first question in the sense that it's only in the last 15 years that we have started hearing the voices of victims of abuse in sport. Sport is always presented as a force for good for young people. But research highlights that sport does not always take place with the rights of children or athletes at the center. until the late 1990s and early 2000s, very few sport organizations had put in place systems and structures to respond to complaints about the behavior of adults and other young people. To speak about some of the things in place, and that's somebody already mentioned it, writing up the policy is the easiest thing to do, but implementing it is very, very difficult. CEDAW, which is the UN Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, includes sport and physical activity. It dates from 1979. It's seen as a Bill of Rights for Women. It's signed by Sri Lanka, but it's still not ratified by the United States of America. If I'm not mistaken, the USA has not ratified the Declaration on the Rights of the Child either, which dates from 1990. The Council of Europe in 2005 calls for combating sexual harassment in sport. The IOC in 2007 made its consensus statement explicitly on sexual harassment in sport, but the IOC Safeguarding Toolkit dates from 2017, so it took 10 years to be produced. But it has everything in place for an NOC or an international federation to look at concerning this topic, and it's a good tool. The IOC Charter is clear that the sport is a human right and every person has a right to sport in a safe environment, etc. But policies do not necessarily mean that they are implemented. There is also the International Safeguards for Children in Sport, which is a very good tool, which was launched in 2014. So it's all kind of very, new. It's happening now. Another thing to answer another question is that it's not possible, and that's why I say it's a global pandemic, it's not possible to point fingers at one country or one sport in particular, because abuse and non-accidental violence runs across PA, PE, and all athlete sports and across cultures. You can't say, oh, in my sport we don't see much of it, but in gymnastics it happens. That is not true. It is there in every single sport, and there are enough examples of that now. And girls and women are in majority the victims. But it's not limited to girls and women. Boys are victims of sexual harassment and abuse, and there are many top male athletes who are now speaking up at last. One example is what happened recently in 2016, the story of Andy Woodward. He came out with his story, and he was followed by the famous British footballer Paul Stewart. And since then, 350 athletes have spoken up. In other words, 1 out of 7 children are involved in abuse. And the UK is one of the countries where the topic of safeguarding is taken very seriously, where policies are in place, where activism started a long time ago. So I truly fear for places where the topic is still taboo and where the culture is still about silencing the victim and pretending it's not happening. So just to give a couple of recent examples, and there's a very good film now, and everyone should watch it. It's on Netflix. It's called Athlete A. I don't know if you have seen it, but it is something that everyone should watch. It's sickening. It's not easy to watch, but it's about athletes who are still out there today. And it's about the USA Gymnastics and the Larry Nassar case, the doctor who abused hundreds of young girls. And it's not about this one sick doctor. It's about the entire organization being silent on this, keeping it going, pretending that it's, oh, we can't, and why? Because it's about good coaches. Good coaches. What is a good coach? A good coach is someone who brings in medals. So you protect the person. You have to watch the film to understand, then you can talk about it later, because it's horrendous. And also in America, in this picture, you see the work that is done by investigative journalists to go out and get the organization and the people who are actually behind this. So in our countries, do we have this kind of investigative journalists? Can we trust the media? Can we trust our politicians to actually support and do the work that has to be done? Richard Strauss, the physician of Ohio State, he abused 177 male students and athletes, male students, 177. And you would think, okay, why don't they speak up? There are policies in place in all these universities. Why don't they speak up? These people are destroyed forever. In Asia, we have the case of the Afghanistan football president. I suppose you all heard about it. He abused the team for years, and some of the girls got away. They are in hiding, they're outside, their lives are in danger, and he is now out. They have actually, found out that he's a perpetrator. The FIFA gave him a $1 million fine. Nice, make some money out of it. Will he ever pay the fine? And now he recently cast in Switzerland throughout his case because he's trying to reverse the life ban that he has got. He has got a life ban from football. That's all he has got. He's a criminal. He has abused girls, destroyed their lives for years. So, you know, there's a lot. Swiss gymnasts are coming out with harassment stories right now. And to talk about tennis, in 2002, Isabelle de Mongeau from tennis, a top tennis player, came out with her story, and 20 others have followed her lead. And 2 days ago, I heard about the Cameroon president from karate, we talked about martial arts, who has now been thrown out, but that's not enough. He's lost his position. But there's no follow-up. What is going to happen with that, I don't know. So that is just not enough. And unfortunately, Japan, where I worked for 4.5 years, where we were talking about it, trying to teach it in a university setup, Human Rights Watch report, 67-page report just released a few days ago titled, "I was hit so many times I can't count," looks at Japan's history of physical punishment in sport and includes first-hand accounts of athletes being punched, kicked, whipped, and abused. 800 athletes in 50 sports were involved in this thing. And Japan is going to organize the Olympic Games. So IOC and Japan JOC are now having discussions a few days ago to see how to deal with this situation. Table tennis, which is my sport, I have lots of stories. We'll need 2 days to talk about it. But recently, a Nigerian athlete who I knew, a fantastic role model, a fantastic table tennis player, has just come out and talked about being abused for years by the coach. So I don't know. What do you say? It's difficult. It's very, very difficult. And another thing is peer harassment. Peer harassment. We always say, oh, we need to protect the coaches. It's not fair. This peer harassment. Athletes harassing each other is even bigger. Some of the results, some of the statistics show that this is also a huge problem. So I think we shouldn't be scared. You know, we don't have to be scared of hurting people's feelings. This is a huge, awful problem, and it has to be started with education in school. It's built on silence is golden. Silence is not golden in this case. It's built on really covering things up because everybody is somehow involved. It's not abusing, you know, you don't have to rape someone to abuse someone. So the language we use as well, it's very interesting. That's another topic. The language we use, she was abused or she was raped. It's always in the passive voice. You know, the person who is raped is the agent of the story. So this is also something that we need to start thinking about. We are worried about talking about sexual harassment. Let's call it something else because otherwise people won't come to sport. Yes, I have been working in women's sport for a long time. Girls do not want to join sport because there is harassment in sport and we have not safeguarded them. Several generations have been lost because of this. So that's why I say it's a global pandemic. And another thing is the more that we wait, the longer the process takes, it's justice denied. Justice delayed is justice denied. So the policy that you have in place, it's something, maybe this is not the time to talk about it, but we should have a look at it. For me, it seems complicated, as you use the word elaborate. Yes, it has to be elaborate. It has to make sure that everyone is protected. But I would take every harassment story seriously. I would take it seriously because I don't think people go around, you know, a woman wouldn't go around putting herself in that situation, saying that she was abused if she wasn't, because it's too complicated. It's too difficult. When you're actually abused, you can't talk about it. So I would take every child's story very seriously, and it has to be anonymous. If you have to be anonymous, but put your name and your telephone number and tell you when this happened, hazing. It doesn't happen. It's not 1 minute where you know, oh, this happened, I was abused, or I was whatever. It doesn't. It takes months. It takes years. It takes taking the athlete into your care and showing them that when you watch the Larry Nassar story, you will see he was the only person who was fine person there, and everyone trusted him, and he just abused their trust. So it's a very, very difficult topic and a very difficult thing to deal with. But we need to deal with it. By saying it's difficult, it doesn't, help anyone. And when I was doing my research, I came across this quote from Frederick Douglass from the 19th century. He was an American abolitionist who says it's easier to build strong children than repair broken men. And I would add women to that as well. So thank you, but I'm here and we can keep talking.
Thank you, Lilamini, for that great insight on the international side. And I would like to just say that, maybe underreporting of incidents in Sri Lanka might be due to the cultural reasons that people are, don't want to talk about it, don't even want to talk with their parents about it. So I guess the education would be a great thing that would bring out people to come and talk about this kind of harassment in sports. So we are hopeful, and we have a great panel complaints committee who are experts in this, who have come forward and volunteered to serve on this. A distinguished panel of personalities, to name a few, is Jayanti Kurutappalam, Charanya Sekaran, Sabrina Isufali, Dila Joseph, Nidra Wickramasinghe, Carol Tozer, Dr. Nihal De Silva, who is Olympian, and Shamla Gomez and Deirdre Moraes. So I'm very grateful to this panel for coming forward and volunteering their time, who are all experts in this subject. And we are very hopeful that in Sri Lanka that we could bring out what you said with your experience. And thank you so much, Lilamini, for your time. We would open it out for questions now from people who have joined this webinar. We are open.
Can I just say something? It's a fantastic panel, fantastic team that you have on board. But I also see that and usually I fight for the opposite, that there should be more women. There are more women in this and one or two men. There has to be a balance in this as well, because it's not a women's issue. The problem is that we see this as a women's issue, and it's not a women's issue. It's everyone's issue. So a balance would also be good. And the other thing that I would like to say, because maybe I won't get the opportunity, the committee, the hearing committee. The hearing committee in your proposal is an internal committee. And that I don't think is very good, because when you see something happens around the world, it's the internal committees that have to cover up for these things, because it's the money of the federation, it's the interest of the federation. So that committee should also be an outside committee that looks into it. And Sri Lankan culture, yes, Sri Lanka is very difficult to talk about, but when you look at what is happening in Europe and the United States, it's exactly the same situation. People don't come out and talk about this. So it's,
Yes. Thank you so much, Lila. Now open to questions. Gopi?
I think I would ask the question at the Mr. Maxwell D'Souza. It's a common question they ask about that. Do you deliver any other contents to the sport administrators through the existing educational programs such as sport administration or managing Olympic sport organization, that advanced sport management course by the National Olympic Committee? If it is not there, so do you have any other plan to establish a new courses regarding that one?
No, I think Gopi, what we will do is we will add to the existing curriculum about the safe sport, and also ensure that we educate, at least on the from our side, the sport administrators, the importance of this. I think I'll go one step further. Is the education. We need to work closely with the education ministry and get this message across to the school sport associations, so that they will do the work for us in the Ministry of Sports, Ministry of Education. Without that, if you don't educate schools, if you don't educate students at a younger age, I think we have failed. We need to do that. As Leela said, we are very, I use the word, passive society. But I think I will also add to Nilu what he says. I have been saying this openly at very many forums about particularly the girls when they're traveling in buses, uh, and then when they cross the roads, I think we have no respect the male. I feel ashamed because one of our CGF intern who came from Canada, uh, she was commenting one day to me, Mr. Maxwell, I was coming to NOC, I was walking, and I don't understand your language, but I felt that the Sri Lankans, they were commenting on me. And I felt so humiliated, bad, our people are like that. Anyone, we will say anything to a woman in private, when the boys get together. I think that's, we need to see that we educate uh, everyone, particularly the school system should, if we can correct the school system, I think we have correct the society in many years. So we have a big challenge, Lila, to make sure that everyone, national federations, athletes, coaches, and the schools. And one problem I see it is sometimes it so happen in Sri Lanka, you frame somebody, innocent, like Jeevan said. Jeevan said, innocent coach could be targeted by some parents from there. So that we need to be mindful of that fact. Or it could happen in Sri Lanka. It will happen in Sri Lanka. So we have to be mindful of that. I think my answer to Gopi is we will include that in all our education program, and also when we are having the teams traveling, we will ensure. I have been fighting for this to ensure that the gender equality even officials. So one of the problems is national federations doesn't nominate adequate females as officials. So that's the one problem we need to address in the next few years. We will ensure that. And also we will educate everyone going in the contingent that they need to have this code of conduct and again sign with NOC so that we will ensure safety of the athlete, whether male or female. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The participants, like if you have any other questions, then you can ask straight away to the panelists.
Gopi, there was in the chat.
Gopi, my name is Joseph from Yachting Association. My question is, first of all, I thank Nilu for having brought this particular sexual harassment to this level in the NOC. But my question is at the Sri Lanka sports macro level, because NOC covers only amount of discipline. But in the sports ministry, there are more than 60 or 70 sports that have been registered. And I'm sure those sports also must be having the same issue. So how do you propose to cover the rest of the sports bodies not covered by the National Olympic?
Mr. Maxwell, would you answer that question?
Yes, I think what we will do is like Mother Teresa says, journey of 1,000 miles start with one step. So we have taken that step. So we will do it. We will not run the 100 meters. It's a marathon, Joe. I know it's not easy. Let's start in stages. We'll first do this 33 national federation and see how the success is. We will also get the DG, Mr. Amal Vijay Sure, and the new secretary is coming on board on this. They will, what Mr. Rohan Chandra told me was that he will have the every national federation registered with them should have a code of conduct. The code of conduct will have a discipline, so we have to get everyone to have a code of conduct for their officials, players, coaches, and even parents, something like that, so that we will have this covered. They will, it has to be approved by the secretary, and also the national federation secretary has to make it, so that this will have all these things about gender, any child abuse or abuse in sport, various things we can put it in. Ministry also can tell them to put it. I don't see an issue there, but let's start from in a small scale in our associations, from NOC, and we will start this journey. Thank you. And also, Gopi, there was some question about the translation. You have answered. I think we are in the process, probably doing the Sinhala and Tamil, English and Tamil version. We will do that. And education, we are including this topic in our education as well. Professor BLH will do that. Thank you. Can we ask Carol Tozer whether she has anything to say?
Dr.
Carol has
Sivali
been
also here from SLADA.
Carol, you want to say anything?
Just that I'm very impressed with what was said here, Maxwell. And Lilamani, you had a lot to offer. I watched that documentary of Larry Dasa's story. I really think you have to go to the education ministry, Maxwell. It's a huge step, and that may also cover some of the sports that don't fall within the NOC guidelines. So you have to start with the kids, obviously. And that will also show people that even the kids and the adults that you're serious about this. And maybe, there will be some who will refrain from what has been going on perhaps in the past and take a new turn. So you can always hope for the best, Maxwell. Good job.
Our team did it. It was a long journey. It was a long time. We took a long time to do it.
I know.
Nilu, over to you.
Good afternoon, Maxi. Can you hear me? This is Fazil.
Yeah,
Hi, Fasil. Yes, please go ahead.
The question is to the Secretary, Mr. Ruan Chandra. Now, as per the new amended Sports Act, what sort of remedies does the Sports Act provide in the case of sexual harassment and abuse?
Forum.
I think, Gopi, what happened was he gave the section 33 where they say maintenance of discipline and every national federation should have a code of conduct. So there we have to have the education, about the discipline and ethics. Everybody has to sign that. So if you break that one, the national federation also can take care of that, and even NOC if it is a Olympic sports. But I will give you also a practical solution to this. Once we have the complaint committee, and if you have a prima facie case, again we can do it, and we can refer to, if it is under 18, we can refer to the Child Protection Authority for them to take immediate action. There is a very, very strong law here, and if you have abused a child, I think it is a non-bailable offense. Gopi, any other questions?
There is no any other questions. Mr. Gihan, you want to ask any other questions? Mr. Gihan on the dais?
Yeah, no, I just the observation of importance of education is, I suppose, critical, because we've talked a lot on the side of more adult related or more professional or the senior sports, but a lot of the harassment can happen at the junior sports level, which Mr. Maxwell rightly said. And if we don't have partnership to get this across with the education ministry, I think the whole system or the whole requirement of this policy will fail. It is critical that we combine, the NOC combines with the education ministry and the sports ministry in getting this out, because a lot of the harassment and to some extent abuse happens by seniors when juniors come into sports teams. It's common knowledge, and I've been there. I've seen it happen when I was in playing sport long years ago. So that would be a vital step and critical to make this policy work for the future. Thanks. That's my observation.
Jayanti Kurutampalam, would you like to comment on anything? Because you're the complaints committee chair. We would like some comments from you.
Yes, thanks, Nilu. Can you hear me? I had a bit of an issue with my microphone.
No, it's
clear.
It's not Mount Everest. Yeah, down. Come on.
Actually, yes, it is. I'll just see if my internet was a bit bad today. Okay, hi, everyone. Actually, yes, I would like to, hi, Nilu, and hi, Maxwell. Thank you, first of all, for hosting this discussion. I think it's been a very interesting discussion and a much needed topic today. And also, I do appreciate the efforts taken by the Olympic Committee of Sri Lanka. And of course, as Carol mentioned earlier, I do appreciate also comments made by Lilamani. Some very interesting and notable comments were made there. And I think, as she also said, rightly said, this is an uphill task. Definitely harder than climbing Mount Everest. But I am confident that this is something that we take one step at a time, but we need to really work together to really make sure that we implement this policy. Because Sri Lanka is also quite famous for having multiple documents and papers and laws and policies, and we know this. And I think where as a country we have struggled is in the implementation. But I think with the team that's come together, including the complaints committee that I am a part of, as well as the team at the NOC in Sri Lanka as well, and of course with support from members of the IOC as well, I hope that we can really take this forward. I hope and I feel we need to work on this. So, and I must also say that in terms of sports, we do know that there are many issues in terms of harassment and discrimination. I also do agree that the number of cases are actually mostly against women and girls, while that does not rule out cases against men and boys, but the majority of the numbers, the data points to women and girls, and that process of ensuring that we access it also through schools is critical, because it begins also at a young age in terms of in school, with coaches in school teams as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm confident that let's work together. Thank you once again for pulling this session together for the policy. Thanks.
Thank you, Jayanti, and thank you everybody for joining this webinar. We would conclude now. Before I switch off, I would like to thank the Women's Committee, which I would like to say, Lila, that we have balanced more men, I think, in the Women's Committee than women. So we have a kind of gender balance going here. So mainly I would like to thank Ajit Tamal from weightlifting, S. Gopinath, Fazil Hussain from baseball, Reshika Udugampala, who is also Olympian, and Mr. Pathira Vitana, who is the Women's Committee, and myself. I'm humbled to work with them. We have a great team, and we have a great complaints committee that I mentioned before, of great personalities, distinguished panel of personalities who are well versed in sexual harassment and abuse. And I'm sure Safe Sport in Sri Lanka would make headway. So like Maxwell said, it's baby steps. We just taken the first step, and I'm sure we would be meeting again in more education series. So thank you everybody, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Wish you the same.
Thank you.